This is Books for Breakfast, a podcast where we talk about books and writing. I'm Enda Wiley.
And I'm Peter Sir.
And you're all very welcome to this morning's show.
And on today's episode, we invite novelist Henrietta McKervey to our kitchen table to discuss some fiction titles. Her choices are Fair Play by Louise Hegarty, which came out from Picador this year in 2025, John Boyne's Heir, which also came out this year from Doubleday, Laura Lippman's Murder Takes a Vacation, which Faber published this year, and Taffy Brodesser-Akner's Long Island Compromise, published by Random House in 2024. And Henrietta also does the famous or infamous Toaster Challenge, with a pretty interesting choice, I have to say, for reasons that will be revealed later. So, put the coffee on and have a listen.
Today on Books for Breakfast, we chat to writer and reviewer Henrietta McKervey about books she's been enjoying over the summer. Henrietta is an energetic and imaginative reader of books. I'm praising you to the hilt now, Henrietta. She's a very fine reviewer on both radio and in print, and she's also a gifted novelist herself and has been a guest before on Books for Breakfast. We always love having Henrietta here talking about her own work and also books that she has admired. And I think, Henrietta, you first came on Books for Breakfast way back in 2020 when we first started to talk about your novel at the time, A Talented Man. And of that novel, A Talented Man, the Sunday Times said, Henrietta McKervey's brilliant new novel is all about stories. It's about the stories we tell regarding ourselves. Are we the hero or the villain of our own lives? It's about what gives a story value and the ways in which a story can take on a life of its own for better or for worse. And I love that quote, Henrietta, and it made me think of the books that you have chosen today and we're going to talk about today, because all the books, I think, do address all of those ideas and they do take on a life of their own. So you've got a lovely pile of books there. First up, we're going to go for Louise Hegarty's Fair Play, which was published by Picador just this year. A wild, inventive debut novel from a writer that arrives with lots of great accolades. An ingenious puzzle box of a novel. This is a wonderful debut, and John McGregor said that. And Emma Stonex praised it for being intricately layered, psychologically astute, and she says she's never read anything quite like it. So, Henrietta, have you never read anything quite like it?
I don't think I have, even though there's very strong aspects to it which speak very directly to the cosy crime genre, which is a very distinct, sort of the golden age of detective fiction, cosy crime, which is a very well-known, well-understood genre. But what makes this so inventive and imaginative is the way it's two different stories playing out at once. So Fair Play opens with preparations for a party. Abigail, the organiser, has hired a country house. It's partly a birthday party for her brother Benjamin, who's about to turn 33. Their parents are dead, so Benjamin and an aunt are all she has. And it's partly a New Year's Eve, like detective murder mystery themed party. The night goes on, they all drink too much and play at being detectives. And in the morning, everyone wakes up except Benjamin. And from here, the novel splits in two. So one narrative follows Abigail in the present day, completely blindsided by the trauma of her brother's sudden death. And the other becomes a locked room detective story written in the style that was really popular in the 20s and 30s, which is this golden age of detective fiction. And they established the Golden Age detectives, many of the conventions still in use. There was a club called the Detection Club, founded in 1930 by a group of British mystery writers, including Agatha Christie, Dorothy L. Sayers, Ronald Knox, G.K. Chesterton. And they produced, Knox later codified the genre and produced these 10 rules that writers needed to adhere to in order to play fair with their readers. And one of the things I loved about this excellent debut is the way it manages to challenge and celebrate these rules all at once. Because suddenly in the novel, there's a detective called Augustus Bell, and he's leading the investigation into Benjamin's murder. Mm-hmm. And Hegarty's cast of characters who were at the original party are suddenly refashioned into these country house habitués. And there's a lovely sort of hat tip to Agatha Christie, because the characters include Lord and Lady Malawan and their dogs Tommy and Tuppence, which is a big Agatha Christie reference. So these two things play out at once. There's Abigail in the present day living through grief and trauma. And
so it's a really ingenious, imaginative idea for a novel, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. And I think as in so many crime novels, like death is merely the inciting incident. It's the thing you need to get it all to kick off. And grief, which is the monster in the shadows that keeps everybody awake at night, that rarely features in crime novels. And she's really upended the genre in a very interesting way.
Yeah, isn't it also as well that she's kind of wondering about the life that her brother led and the mystery of it? She's wondering about his life. Do we really know the people that we love? Doesn't that kind of come into it?
Exactly, yeah. And some of these things, they're not mysteries that can be solved, you know, which is the opposite of a cosy crime. And the two really play out very nicely against each other.
So that's a really enjoyable book.
I just love this, you know, what you mentioned there about the kind of locked room mystery and the formula and all that, those kind of tropes with the, you know, the Agatha Christie kind of tropes in a way. I mean, they're very comforting. They're very kind of comforting formula. As you say, it's kind of, you know, grief is removed from it, but it's something. There's something about that formula that kind of is deeply attractive. There
is, and I think as booksellers found during the lockdowns, particularly when there was a huge surge in cosy crime purchases, because it is a pure escapism. You know, everything ends up the way it should. The world is returned to how we like it at the end. It's pure escapism. Everything gets resolved. All blood violence pretty much happens off screen. You know, They can, weirdly, considering they are about crime, they are very comforting read sometimes.
So thanks for that. I mean, it's great to hear about this kind of intriguing book. And it's also, I mean, fair to say that though this is the first novel for Louise Hegarty. She's someone who, you know, up to this or before this, she's been beavering away with stories and doing her kind of writing apprenticeship. She's published, I know, in journals like The Stinging Fly, Dublin Review. She's been on BBC Radio 4, I think, as well. And she was the inaugural winner of the Sunday Business Post Penguin Ireland Short Story Prize. So she's clearly kind of like a practiced writer at this.
Yeah, and there is a confidence to the writing. I mean, to take on some of the things that she has challenged herself to do in this book, I do think you need confidence, which I think makes it a particularly good debut.
And just as we said that, the door creaked. A ghost is here.
Ghost of Agatha Christie.
Ghost of Agatha Christie. Might there be a short piece you'd like to read from it? Because, I mean, as you said, she's a confident writer. Peter has been speaking there about how experienced she is. Books like this just don't come out of nowhere, if you know what I mean. The writer is experienced. She's been working hard over the years.
Clearly an apprenticeship gone into this, whether published or unpublished, there has to be. Yeah.
Exactly. So it'd be lovely to hear a piece.
Yes. So this is it's about quite maybe 2/3 into the book, and Abigail has gone back to work. And she's really struggling with how much people around her are trying to intrude, as she sees it, on her grief and her trauma and involve themselves in it. So there's a woman in work called Clara who's been insisting that they go for coffee, they have a chat, and she's just had to give in and go along with it. She's run out of ways to say no. They meet at the coffee kiosk outside of their office building. It's quite warm, so they sit outside. "How are you doing?" asks Clara. Abigail hates this question. There is no good way to answer it. "Oh, I'm fine," she says. A lie. "It must be so difficult for you. I can't imagine. You know I had a tough time with my mother dying the year before last, and when I heard about..." This sort of thing happens to Abigail all the time now. People identify a certain type of sadness in her, and they see it as a sign to use her as a receptacle for all the bad things that have happened to them. "It really triggered something in me, you know. I thought I was okay, I thought I was coping, but I wasn't. And I had to admit to myself, and then when you came back to work, God, every time I see you, I feel so sad." And then there are the people who try to wallow in her sadness alongside her. People who want her to stay down in her hole while they climb in after her. People who tell her confidently that she will never get over this, or that everything happens for a reason. Abigail doesn't know how much more she can take.
And that was Henrietta McKervey talking about Louise Hegarty's new debut novel, Fair Play, published by Picador in 2025.
And now on to John Boyne's Air. Henrietta, you've been on our podcast before talking about his last novel, Fire, which is a kind of book of psychological drama, and it's part of this elements quartet, each strand, I suppose, combining into a kind of tapestry of intersecting lives. And the final novel in this series of novels, Water, Earth and Fire, is his recently published Air, which features a father on a transformative journey with his sons. 30,000 feet in the air, Aaron Umber is a father damaged by his past. He's at a crossroads in his life. He's hoping to connect with his 14-year-old son. So, question, I suppose, is this as compelling a read as you found Fire to be?
Fire, I think, will stand out for me as the exceptional one of the quartet. This is really interesting, very enjoyable. He's so good with character, the way he connects these two characters together. So this is the fourth, as you say, the final book in the Element series, which focuses on human stories and the way in which trauma plays out. I think trauma in this series, there's that medieval club that has the spikes on it. I think it's called a Morning Star, or a spiked mace is another name for it. And I think trauma in the Element series is one of those clubs. So it gives these hard blows that you get from the club as people, as the trauma is inflicted on people. And then there's these long, slow cuts as well, which are taking generations to heal. And I think the way John Boyne has threaded this through the 4 books is really clever. So as before, he's taking characters from previous books and moving them centre stage. So as you say, Peter, we have Aaron Umber and his teenage son Emmett, who are travelling from Sydney to Ireland to meet a woman who is not expecting to see them. Aaron was married to Emmett's mother, Rebecca, who is a daughter of a woman called Vanessa, who in the book Water temporarily moves to an island off the west coast in search of recovery after her husband's crimes were revealed. And Aaron and Rebecca's marriage was a sexless one. Both parties were completely broken, as it's described, when they met. Rebecca, in fact, is so scarred that Vanessa has warned Aaron off the night before the wedding. It's really complicated the way all this plays out in the book, but Aaron, as this book opens, is really afraid that the sins perpetrated on him are going to be repeating themselves, or already have begun to repeat themselves, on his son. So he's taking stock. It's a book about action and consequence. It's really human in the way that life can be troubling and for some desperately traumatic. Like, he is a man who's trying to free his future from his past, which is an enormously difficult thing to do. And one thing I particularly like about this quartet is the way their main characters are recognisably ordinary people. I mean ordinary in the best way, the way any of us could be these people, the way Maeve Binchy meant when she said, nobody is ordinary if you know where to look. But they're recognisably human people that we would encounter every day. And the past is continuously elbowing its way back into the present as they take this journey from Sydney over to Ireland. A short book, very powerful.
And a satisfying way to conclude the quartet, do you think?
It is, I think, yes. As I say, Fire is my standout. I think it's also a very unusual approach.
Yeah, I remember how much you love that book. Yeah. And is it, in the end, does he achieve a type of redemption at the end? Or are things, we were talking about Cozy Crime earlier, and things get resolved and we all feel very happy. But I know you don't want to give away the ending, but is there kind of a resolution at the end?
There is a very understandable human level of resolution. Everything doesn't get wrapped up. You don't get this package with the bow on it, because we're all human, and it's like the trauma delivered by the mace. You live with the scars forever. But I think he does well by his characters. Yeah.
And the writing as well. He's a very assured writer, isn't he?
He is, yes. Again, very confident, very clear, like it's quite simple prose, but very moving in places. Yeah.
It sounds really, really interesting. And again, Henrietta, we're going to get you to read a piece because I'd love to hear it and just give a taster to our listeners out there. So this is Henrietta, and she's reading an extract from John Boyne's Air.
Yes, this is from quite early on. They have just got on the plane to begin their journey. And Aaron has really been troubled by the fact that what happened to him, he's concerned, is happening somehow to his son. I store my backpack, removing my laptop, phone and book, before examining the menu and small bag of cosmetics that awaits every passenger on their chair. Emmett is doing the same, studying the tiny tubes of moisturiser, deodorant, toothpaste and lip balm with care. Along with his attempts to grow stronger, he's become increasingly concerned with his skin in recent months, and I've noticed a range of serums and moisturisers making their way along the shelves of his bedroom. A liquid army prepared to repel the advance of pimples or blemishes, although so far he appears to have been lucky in that his skin remains blemish-free. Next, he picks up the television control and starts scanning through the endless list of films and TV shows on offer, removing a small notebook from his backpack and scribbling down various titles. This is a boy who loves nothing more than a good list, tracking every book he reads, every film or TV show he watches, his daily steps, his weight, even a record of the best waves he catches. Although he's unaware of it, I invaded the privacy of his phone recently and was shocked by what I discovered there. It's one of the things I'm hoping to discuss with him on this trip, but I've never seen inside his laptop and imagine it holds any number of complicated spreadsheets along with God knows what else. For a time, I wondered whether there was an element of OCD to his relentless list-making, but I think being organised simply calms him, offering him the illusion that he's in control of a life that has, on occasion, been badly disrupted.
Right, sounds interesting. 30,000 feet up in the air, and the normal rules of life do not apply, as it says at the back of the book, at the back of that book. So that's Henrietta McKervey reading John Boyne's Air, and it was again a book published by Doubleday, out just this year, isn't that right, Henrietta?
That's right, yes, yeah. August 25, yep.
Now, I have to say, I'm going to Paris at the weekend, and I was very excited that you suggested that you wanted to talk about Laura Lippman, Murder Takes a Vacation, published by Faber, again in this year, 2025. And Laura Lippman, she's published an enormous amount of collections, hasn't she, Henrietta?
She really has.
She really has. Like, I mean, you actually
so
read it. I know, you just go, oh my God.
I know, she's so impressive.
She's published novels, she's published collections of stories, also the Tess Monaghan series. Yep. She's a really prolific writer. She's won tons of crime fiction prizes. And then Gillian Flynn calls her the master. And this year, Laura Lippman was in fact named a Grand Master by the Mystery Writers of America. And this is a Mrs. Blossom's mystery. Is this a new series that she's begun?
It is. It is. This is the first, and I don't think it will be the last by any means. So Mrs. Muriel Blossom, to give her full title, which she is given throughout the book. It's very charmingly done, actually. You very briefly featured in the Tess Monaghan series as an assistant to Tess, but she was very minor character, and Laura Lippman has said that she felt there was just something else there that she hadn't done enough to or hadn't done right by her yet, so she decided to give her own series, like I think it will be, and it's not hard-boiled in the way the Tess Monaghan are. It's very much a cosy crime. Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, it's a really nice idea that she was looking at her character. She's going, I know, I think I'll develop her a little bit. So she got an upgrade, Mrs. Blossom. And what did you make of the book? Did you enjoy it? Again, it's a mystery, isn't it?
It is.
On the Seine in Paris.
Yes.
She doesn't get the vacation she thinks she's going to get. Sure, she doesn't.
She absolutely does not, no. So it opens with Mrs. Blossom getting her first ever flight upgrade in Baltimore. But by the time she finally unpacks in Paris, a charming man she spent a day with is dead, a valuable artefact is missing, and a stylish stranger keeps popping up everywhere, partly to give her fashion advice and partly warning her that she is in danger. It's very charming. The plot's a little convoluted in parts. I did get a little confused with who was chasing who through France at one stage, but it's a really charming read. And it tackles some very interesting issues that other books just don't, in terms of older people. Also weight. Mrs. Blossom is very fat. Right. And she talks about herself as a fat person. She talks about living a life as a fat person, and the way other people deal with her, don't deal with her. She is weirdly taking up too much space as other people see it, and also invisible. So it's really interesting on that dynamic, and also just what it is like to be this older person walking around by herself.
I thought that as well when I was reading. I thought that was so interesting that it was touching on subjects you don't normally read about. No. She's a great old character, isn't she?
Really is.
She really is.
And,
okay, the plot does get a bit convoluted, but you don't mind.
No, she's very charming. She's great company. Yeah. Like, she's a good company to have as you're trying to solve this crime with her. She's witty, she's clever. Lovely lady, yes. Yeah,
so I really hope that's not the last we're going to hear of her. And we'd like to hear a little bit again, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And this is from the start of the book, actually. It's the very first page, because I think the character just leaps to life so clearly from the very start. This will give you a good sense of who Mrs. Muriel Blossom really is.
Okay.
Mrs. Blossom had never been upgraded in her life. To be fair, until this moment, the last day of March, a Baltimore March that was going out full lion, all blustery winds and horizontal sleet, it had not been a life that offered many opportunities for upgrades. A good life, yes, even an excellent one while her husband was alive, but also a rooted to the ground kind of existence. It wasn't a matter of never getting past the velvet ropes, more an issue of never getting to them. For one thing, she seldom flew, averaging only a trip or two a year between her native Baltimore and her recent hometown of Phoenix. She always chose Southwest, a no-frills airline, because she was a no-frills kind of person. Once, just once, she bought a business select ticket because circumstances had forced her to book last minute. The only real advantage was boarding in the first group, a novelty to her. Oh, and there was a drink coupon, but it was 6:30am. She gave it to the nervous flyer next to her, who ordered a screwdriver, downed it in 3 gulps, then fell asleep, his head lolling on her shoulder. Mrs. Blossom had the kind of shoulder that even strangers found inviting. Meanwhile, when it came to hotels, Well, she hadn't stayed in one of those since Mr. Blossom died. Even during the marriage, it had just been the occasional Hampton Inn here and there. Harold Blossom was a homebody, which meant Mrs. Blossom had been a homebody too. If the person you love likes to stay put, you stay put with them.
Oh, yeah. I like that idea as well, that her husband wanted to stay at home, but now she's off, isn't she?
Yes, she has an unexpected lottery win, which is kind of convoluted and very interesting, and she's gone. Yeah,
so that was Henrietta McKervey, and she was reading from Murder Takes a Vacation. It's a Mrs. Blossom mystery, and it's written by Laura Lippman, and it's published by Faber just this year. And so now to your final choice. You're doing so well, Henrietta.
Yes.
Long Island.
Yes, this was a whopper.
It's a whopper, Long Island Compromise by Taffy Brodesser-Ackner, best known for Fleischman is in Trouble, and this is it's a follow-up to it. It's called Long Island Compromise, and it explores the fallout from a kidnapping in a rich American family. Is this novel as sharp, witty, funny and moving as Fleischman, Henrietta? Because we all loved Fleischman, didn't we?
Yeah, Fleischman was great. I think the answer is yes and no, maybe, because it's about the curse of mega wealth in contemporary America, and in order to do that, we have to sit for quite a long time with some quite unpleasant characters. Which has its own challenge when you're reading a book. But she's very witty, she's really observant and insightful, so I do think it's worth it. You will get to the end quite happily. But there were times where I found myself thinking, I don't like any of these people. Why do I care about them? But that, of course, becomes part of the point of it. You find ways to care about them because their trauma has made them who they are. You know, I think the actual compromise of the title is that poor people born poor will struggle but be resourceful, whereas those born rich will turn into basket cases but never have to wonder about how they'll pay their therapist, is basically what it boils down to.
And isn't it as well that Carl, he's been kidnapped, and then it's years later and he's facing the question, where did the ransom go? And if he was to ever find the money, would it finally give him and his family some sort of closure? Isn't that what it's all about as well? So it is, we were talking about John Boyne earlier, but there is a psychological element to this novel as well, isn't there?
There is, because this is how the trauma is playing out through the generations of his kidnapping. The opening, maybe 30 odd pages of the book is the kidnapping, and it's really well written, it's really sharp, it's engaging. And then suddenly we're in present day, and the three children who were 8, 6 and actually unborn at the time of the kidnapping, present day, Beamer, the middle son, he's a Hollywood screenwriter in his 40s, married with kids, a complete mess. His screenwriting career is dead because he writes kidnappings into every storyline. Like, his only real talent is for letting his family down. His older brother Nathan is a lawyer with crippling anxiety. He's neurotic and really brittle. And then Jenny, who was born some months after the kidnapping, but is equally damaged by it. So you can see how the trauma has come through the family. And she despises everyone other than Beamer. Her career is in workers' rights, which is ironic given how badly her family have treated the workers in their polystyrene factory that has made them their fortune. But rebelling against her family, hasn't made her happy either. So these children have grown up to underachieve that you can only do if somebody else is footing the bill. It's that level of underachievement. They never really have to challenge themselves. And it's aspiration as a survival method. It's really interesting, the themes she gets.
I mean, she set herself a big challenge there, hasn't she, as a writer, because she's spanning generations, isn't she? And it's a kind of you're going right across to the present day.
She's skillful at it, actually, just the way she can go from like 2 years later to 1 month after in a couple of paragraphs. Well,
isn't she a writer for the New York Times?
Yes.
Isn't that right?
She is,
So, I mean, she's just very sharp, isn't she? And very witty. So,
and Fleischman had that. There was, multiple narratives happening within it. I think that did set up some of the same. It certainly will feel like familiar territory.
Yeah, I know. So timeless questions about wealth, trauma and the American soul, really, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And also the Middle Rock, where the place that they live, it was the first American suburb to be half Jewish. So it's these displays of wealth that all these Jewish families are playing out. They're kind of a disguise, they're an attempt by the residents to camouflage how insecure they feel, how they want to cover up their origins. And they feel their lives are playing out adjacent to the American dream, whereas what they really want is to live the American dream.
They want to live it. Peter, would you read a book like that? Would you be interested in it?
Yeah, I mean, I would read it. I did enjoy the TV series, but I've never actually read the novels. So yeah, I'd love to give it a go.
And this has been optioned for TV as well. Yeah.
Anyway, it's Taffy Brodesser Ackner, and it's Long Island Compromise. And Henrietta, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today about Louise Hegarty's Fair Play Picador 2025, John Boyne's Air Doubleday, came out with Doubleday this year, and Laura Lippman's Murder Takes a Vacation. These are kind of books that if you are going on a vacation, I think people would really enjoy them as well.
All of them, yes. I mean, you'll need to check your weight allowance for the Long Island Compromise, but yeah.
Now, as usual, to everyone listening out there, details of all the books will be available on booksforbreakfast.buzzsprout.com. But before Henrietta goes, Peter, are we going to...
She's not out of the woods yet, because there is, in fact, going to be a toaster challenge. And Henrietta has agreed to do that. And we all know the toaster challenge is where you get to talk about a book that you like or that has meant something for you for the length of, that has meant something to you for the length of time that it takes a toast to kind of nicely crisp itself, so...
I think you'll be up for that, Henrietta, won't you? Okay. Now, I'm going to get the bread and I'm putting it into the toaster. So 1, 2, 3, go, Henrietta McKervey.
The book I would like to talk about is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which is one of my favourite books, published in 1936, never gone out of print. So very nicely done for her. There's been loads of adaptations. For me, the movie is the best, still the original Joan Fontaine film, the Hitchcock one. So the story is that, I'm sure most people are familiar with it. Max de Winter, who's this very wealthy man from Cornwall, is on holidays in the south of France. He's a widower, he's grieving, his wife drowned, and he meets this young woman who we only ever know as the girl, or Mrs. de Winter. She's very young, gauche, insecure. She's working as a companion to an older lady. And he marries her and brings her back to Manderley, his country home. And she becomes obsessed with the idea of Rebecca, who was his first wife, who everybody appeared to adore, who made his house beautiful, who made his gardens beautiful, who all the staff loved. And this book is really about these two women who never meet, obviously, because one is dead as the book opens. It's actually about the relationship between the two of them and how that works in the second Mrs. de Winter's head. And when she actually finds out what happens to the first Mrs. de Winter, we get a complete reversal of her character, and we see her as being not more conniving, but actually much colder and harder than we think she is. And I've loved this book for many reasons, but one of the more recent reasons is because early on in the book, a body has been washed up, which Max identifies as that of his wife. She is buried as Rebecca in the family crypt that everybody mourns. That's why he's off in the south of France grieving with his wife buried in the crypt. And then the real Rebecca's body is found a year later in her boat. Mm-hmm. So who is the body that was buried in the crypt? And this has fascinated me for a really long time. And I have just written a book about it called The Woman in the Water, which will be out from Hachette next March. And this is the first time I've actually spoken about it.
Oh, good on you, Henrietta. And I think that is so interesting because, in a way we were talking about Laura Lippman and taking Mrs. Blossom as a small character from one book. You're actually doing that. Who was that woman?
Who was that woman? I mean, she has a full life now that I have given to her. But why was there a body floating in the water that Max was able to go and identify and said, yes, that is my late wife? And then she vanishes from the book. She vanishes from Rebecca once the real Rebecca is found.
I'm so glad you did this toaster challenge today, Henrietta.
So am I. Thank you. I'm delighted to talk about it. I haven't spoken about it in public before, so...
I can't wait to read now.
Next March.
So say it again, it's coming out next March 2026.
Yes, it's called The Woman in the Water and the publisher is Hachette.
What's that adaptation you were talking about? Was that the one with Laurence Olivier?
Yes.
That is so good.
It is. It's the best. There was a good TV series in the 80s, a BBC one, and a more recent Netflix one, which was terrible.
Yeah, terrible.
Oh, Mrs. Danvers.
Horrifying. I mean, what a book. I remember, when our daughter Freya was very small, I put on the black and white version with Laurence Olivier and she's watching it and she's sucking her thumb and then she took her thumb out and she said, Mummy, that housekeeper is not nice.
Well, she's right.
I think it was a very traumatic film to put on for a little girl. But anyway, it's such a great novel, isn't it?
It's really wonderful. And because obviously I've read it lots of times, in the past and then more recently while I was writing this book, and you can just unpick and there's so much interesting inside it.
Yeah, it's very sinister. I mean, when you think of Hitchcock, he was so good at adapting her stories as well, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Don't Look Now, that was
and The Birds.
Yeah, The Birds as well.
It was him. Yeah, now he did change the ending of the film from the book because they deemed the ending of the book to be too too cold, too hard. There's a clear murderer, you know, and he wanted it to feel slightly more accessible, I think, for his 1940 audience. But they're both great.
And I mean, I suppose the whole thing, as you say, is that sinister idea that the woman is dead and she's coming in as the young bride to the house, and her name is on everything, isn't it? On the handkerchiefs, everywhere.
Clothes, she had a nicer bedroom, her clothes were beautiful, and this young woman just, she's haunted by Rebecca, but the Rebecca that's haunting her isn't actually the real Rebecca that is revealed through the book. And then who she isn't revealed through the book. And then I thought, well, that poor woman who was in the crypt, who never had a name, who never had an identity, who never had a story, I wanted to give her a story.
And are we in Cornwall again? I hope we are for that. Okay.
Yes, yeah, we are. It doesn't. I don't have the characters from Rebecca in it, but it's a neighbouring estate called Alderley. But it's set in London and this estate.
Did you have to go back? Did you have to go to Cornwall and
Well, I have been there, yeah. So you can't actually visit the house Manderley is based on, like it's a private house. But I have been around that area, yeah.
And there is actually a Daphne du Maurier crime festival on, which I've always wanted to go in Fowey. So I think it's on in springtime. I'd love to go. We can go together.
That would be lovely.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Henrietta McKervey. So not only do we get the wonderful books that Henrietta's been speaking about, but we also got a sneak kind of preview of her new novels. So the best of luck with that, Henrietta. And I hope everyone out there enjoyed today's brilliant reviewer, Henrietta McKervey, coming in to inspire us all as to what we should next be reading. So thank you so much, Henrietta.
Thank you very much.
I think we've reached the end of our Books for Breakfast podcast this morning. I'm definitely rushing off to have more coffee. And I'm Enda Wiley and I have Peter Sarah here with me. And Peter, would you like to tell everyone about the details of the podcast if they'd like to listen again?
Well, you can subscribe at all the usual sources, Google and Apple and so on. And if you want to check out the notes that go along with this podcast, you can go to booksforbreakfast.buzzsprout.com. And so
we'll be back again. We'll have the toast on, we'll have the kettle boiling, we will have more books to discuss, and we're looking forward to having you here. So goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.